Hello and welcome to this edition of Veterans Corner Radio, information for and about veterans. In this podcast, Bill Hodges has as his guest John Rosentrater, director of the Sarasota National Cemetery. When we recorded this podcast, we were so amazed at everything that the National Cemeteries have to offer veterans that we recorded a second part, which will also be available here at Veterans Corner Radio. Here now is Bill Hodges with Veterans Corner on Veterans Corner Radio. Support for Veterans Corner on Veterans Corner Radio is made possible by M&M Printing and the Observer News of Ruskin.
Welcome to Veterans Corner, a show dedicated to providing information to all those who have served our country's military and to their families. Now, here is your host, newspaper columnist, management trainer, and Air Force veteran, Bill Hodges.
Hi, I am Bill Hodges, and this is Veterans Corner. We have today somebody who I've been trying to get for some period of time, and I finally got to the right guy, John Rosentrater. He is the cemetery director of the Sarasota National Cemetery. John, how great to have you on the show.
Well, very glad to be here with you today, Bill.
I was talking to somebody about end of life and was saying, well, I'm going to be dumped in the bay, so we don't have to worry about that. And he said, do you want no record of you ever existing? And I said, well, the official no. But he said, there are some things that the cemetery service can do for you as a vet and for your wife. And he went into it, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that with you and the things you have down there at the Sarasota National Cemetery, who's eligible, and things of that nature. So with that, it's yours.
Great. Well, excellent. And that is so true. Whether if you're in Colorado and you want to use the Rocky Mountain National Park to spread your remains or the Gulf Coast here, we have that. So when we talk to veterans, and oftentimes they says, well, or we do outreach and we say, do you know your burial benefits? They'll say, I'm just going to be cremated. Well, let me just tell you, every vet, every spouse, and every dependent child up to the age of 21 or 23, if they're in continuing education, are eligible for interment in a national cemetery. Also, the adult dependent children. So if you have a child who is deemed to be mentally or physically handicapped prior to their 21st birthday, they too are eligible for interment the rest of their life. It simply takes a letter from the doctor stating what their age was when they became disabled and that they've never had a job or never been married and that they've been under the care or been taken care of by the veteran.
I have a friend that's in that very situation, and I bet you they don't know this.
Well, and it is very easy to take care of, but it sometimes is difficult. Sometimes the veteran lived up north and the adult dependent child was up north and all their doctors were up north, and now that adult dependent child may be in their 50s and the veteran's in their 70s and 80s, and it's a little bit more difficult to come up with that documentation, but it is very important. We do have to have a letter from a doctor stating those facts that I gave earlier.
So is there a form they have to fill out or just a letter that says, this is my child and my child has been dependent on me because of these conditions from the time they were in the
It would be a letter from the doctor stating those
Yes.
things, that this child has been dependent upon X, Y, and Z veteran and therefore is dependent.
So they ought to do that right now.
Well, I
Don't wait
just,
to end of life.
Right. I just say to every veteran and spouse that come into the cemetery, you are doing your family such a huge gift by taking care of this information in advance, because most all children want to follow their parents' desires of burial. And if the family, if the parents have actually gone forward and said, I want to use Sarasota or I want to use Florida National or Bay Pines National Cemetery, and I want to be cremated and I want to either be in ground with a full upright marble headstone or I want to be in our columbarium, which is the above ground cremation burial with a niche cover or full casket. So that's what I want to say. Many people know what a mausoleum is, but few people have ever heard of a columbarium.
No, I'm not even sure I can say it.
Right. A columbarium is exactly that. It is above ground cremation burial. So, of course, it's much smaller. The niche is only 9.5 inches wide, 12 inches tall by 18 inches deep. And then it has a marble niche cover like what a mausoleum would, but of course much bigger. But the other thing that I wanted to hit
Does it
on...
have a plaque or something on it?
Well, that's the niche cover, is
the
plaque.
niche cover,
yes,
okay.
that would list both the veteran and the spouse and their birth year and death year on there. But what I wanted to mention earlier, we were talking about having remains scattered or being non-recoverable, whether if the veteran was lost at sea or has been declared missing in action, or, like we said, ashes have been scattered in the Gulf. We have a memorial wall that has the same kind of cover as a niche cover, but there, of course, is no niche behind it. And every one of those has a memory of, because there's no remains there. So It just simply says in memory of, and that's our Memorial Wall A, and then we have Memorial Wall B, and that's the wall that separates the Patriot Plaza from the columbarium area.
You know, if people wanted to come down to the National Cemetery in Sarasota, is there hours that it's open, or can they come down anytime?
Yeah. Well, for starters, I want to emphasize the cemetery has no gates, so the cemetery is always open to visit grave sites sunup to sundown 7 days a week. But if you want to talk to staff members, we're there in the administration building from 8 to 4:30 Monday through Friday, except for legal holidays.
I always tell people when they listen to this program, they need to have paper and pencil ready. I hope some of you remembered that, because I'm going to ask you now to give the phone number they would call if they have questions of you or anybody on the staff.
Yeah, and we only have one phone number, but we have volunteers that answer those phones, so we don't go into a call system. Anyway, so that's 941-922-7200. And then ask for either a cemetery representative or myself, John Rosentrater, to answer your questions.
I will give that number again before we finish the broadcast, because surely there's somebody scrambling for a pencil.
Right.
And even myself, you give me a number to remember, I'm not going to remember. I think I'm going to, but I don't always do that.
Well, there's also a very important website to remember, and that is www.cem, as in cemetery, .va, as in Veterans Affairs, .gov. And at that website, and it's of course on all of our brochures also and on my business card, but that website is where you can find out everything that we're going to be talking about today is right there on that website. And it's making burial arrangements or memorial affairs is one thing that you can click on there.
Give that website again, slowly.
Yes, absolutely. It's www.cem, as in cemetery, .va, as in Veterans Affairs, .gov. And for instance, there's a nationwide grave locator on that website that you could, if you think, because we do have people call and say, I think I have a family member in your cemetery. Can you look this up? Well, I'll just say people can put in that nationwide grave locator, and maybe maybe your loved one's in New York, or maybe they're up at Florida National, because before we opened in 2009, Florida National was the main cemetery for this area.
That's interesting. I can go and find any vet that's buried there, or whether they're buried in one of the national cemeteries?
Yes, anywhere in the nation. So it is a nationwide grave locator.
That's kind of interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yes.
Who is eligible for burial?
Yeah, so it is the veteran, any veteran with above dishonorable discharge. And that has changed a little bit in the 80s. Since 1981, you had to serve at least 2 consecutive years. But prior to that, you may have only been in a week or been in 90 days or whatever and had a medical discharge. You are still eligible. But the best way to take care of all of that is to always make sure that you have your discharge papers. And I encourage every veteran, once you have chosen a funeral home or crematorium of your choice, take to them that copy of your discharge papers, because that's the only document that's needed to determine your eligibility.
That's our DD-214?
DD-214, and then for the World War II, it's not DD-214, but
they
is
have an actual discharge paper, a little card, in fact. I've seen several of them.
It is actually a WG-209. I'm not for sure of that number, but it is for World War II veterans. It's a little bit different than the DD-214.
Now, if I want to pre-plan my funeral, Do I come down to you, or do I talk with the funeral home about it?
Yeah, you would talk to the funeral home only. There's absolutely no pre-registration. There's no reservation, anything at all at the cemetery. It's only at the time of need. So we encourage family. I'll just use myself as an example. My dad was a Korean War veteran. 6 years before his passing, I went to the local funeral home. We picked out the casket. We got the little packet to help write down how he wants his ceremony and everything to be. Then when I got the call and I'm driving back to Nebraska from Florida, I just had one call to make, and that was the funeral home.
Now, a couple have been married or are married. What about the spouse? How does that work?
Yeah, so let's just say that the spouse, that's oftentimes the question, if the spouse passes away first.
Yes.
It's still the veteran's discharge is what makes us eligible. So the only thing that makes the children or the spouse eligible is that veteran's honorable discharge. So again, if the spouse passed away, that honorable discharge for the veteran would have to be turned into our scheduling office in St. Louis, where they would determine the eligibility.
You know, I often tell veterans, and we speak about it on this program, that if you can't find your DD-214, you really need to start looking for it, or find a veteran service officer that'll help you get it, because it's important to have, correct?
Every veteran benefit comes, and the eligibility is proven by that DD-214. So if you want any veteran benefit, you need to have that DD-214.
I promised that I would give out the number again that you call if you want more information. 941-922-7200. Again, area code 941-922-7200. And the website is www.cem.va.gov. I'll repeat that, www.cem.va.gov. And we've been speaking with John Rosentrater, who is the cemetery director here at the Sarasota National Cemetery. And that is a gorgeous facility down there.
Well, thank you. We are very fortunate that we were able to purchase that property from Dr. and Mrs. Hawkins back in 2007, I believe. We had our dedication on June 1st of 2008, and then we opened on January 9th of 2009. And as of the end of August, we have 18,640 veterans and eligible family members that have used.
Is there lots of room?
Excellent question. Yes, we have 295 acres. Currently, we have about 90 acres developed, and we figure we have burial space. Right now, what they project is for 150,000 veterans and eligible family members.
We've got a long way to go yet.
Figuring we have time till 2065.
John Rosentrater, Director, the Sarasota National Cemetery, thank you so much for being on the program. And we'd like to have you back. Will you come back?
Oh, absolutely. It'd be a great pleasure to.
I know you do a great service to our veterans. You're unique, you're special, and you're great. Tell yourself so often because you are, you know, and we'll see you on the next Veterans Corner.
You've been listening to Veterans Corner with your host, Air Force veteran Bill Hodges. The views expressed on this program are those of Bill and his guests, and are opinions based on the best available information. In matters of law or governmental regulation, it will always be best to check with the appropriate agency. Thanks for listening, and we hope you'll join us for the next Veterans Corner.